Good evening and welcome to the June 13th, 2022 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. My name is Catherine Halpern. I'm Chair of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. And this meeting is being conducted by remote participation only. And I will give you a few points about that remote participation in just a few moments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is connected and is recording the meeting, please notify us. I'll give you a few seconds to respond in case you're muted. Okay, so let's go ahead. This meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation only, as I mentioned, in accordance with Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and shall afford adequate alternative means of public access via Microsoft Teams or by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410. That's 1-508-945-4410. And the conference ID number is 588-133-004 #. That's 588-133-004 #. You can also join the meeting by using the link in the posted agenda on our website. And this would be joining the meeting by computer using Microsoft Teams. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. And as I mentioned, we'll be posting a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And in accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue or matter on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. Before I go over a few more procedural steps regarding our remote participation, I'm just going to ask everyone to mute your microphones and disable your video. With the exception of planning board members, please mute your microphones if you're not speaking, but please keep your videos on. So we'll begin with, there's a little echoing, so maybe somebody has their microphone on. Yes, Mark?
You have a number of telephone callers, and I just remind them to use the mute button on their phone so that we don't have to mute them here. If they do get muted, they can unmute with *6, please.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that reminder. Right, so we'll begin with a roll call of all board members. And if you are a non-board member of the public, and you've been recognized by the chair to speak, please repeat your name. And if you're connected by phone, also repeat the last 4 digits of your phone number. We just always want to be able to clearly identify all speakers during the meeting. And after an agenda item has been discussed by the planning board, I will request questions or comments from the public, and then you may speak when recognized by the chair. All votes by the planning board tonight will be taken by roll call. And at the end of the meeting, we'll close the meeting with a verbal confirmation of adjournment, and we'll note the time of adjournment. So let's start with the roll call of all board members. Art Sprue, are you present?
Art Sprue, present.
Thank you. Warren Chain, present.
Warren Chain, present.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, present.
Bob Wirtschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, present.
And has Tom Gagan joined us yet? I don't think so. And Roger Griffin will not be connected to the meeting. This is Catherine Halpern. I'm also present. And may I ask all planning board members, is there anyone who needs to recuse themselves from any matter on our agenda tonight? All right, so then let's go ahead to our first agenda point, which is the minutes from May 23rd meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes as drafted for the May 23rd meeting? If there are none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes for the May 23rd Planning Board meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. And may I have a second?
Bob Dubus will second.
Thank you. So let's do a roll call vote. Art Spru,
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wertheimer approve.
and Tom Gagan was absent from the meeting, but I'll ask again if he's joined us. Don't see. This is Catherine Halpern, and I also approve the minutes for the May 23rd meeting. So let's go to the next agenda item, which is the release of covenant, statement of conditions for 279 Kroll Road. As you see in your packet, this applicant has requested a continuance of this matter, and they've requested for the June 27th meeting. So may I have a motion to continue this matter to the June 27th meeting?
This is Warren Chain, so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Art Sprue, second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. Art Spru,
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wertheimer approve.
and has Tom Gagan joined us? So this is Catherine Halpern, and I also approve that we continue this matter to the June 27th meeting. Next item on our agenda is a pre-application for a site plan approval. And this is for actually an amended site plan. This is for 1238 Main Street. And this is regarding a change of use for a portion of the building from retail sales to a fitness center, which is a formula business, and another portion of that building to a bakery and restaurant. So first I will ask if we have someone presenting for this applicant.
Yes, David
Dave.
Clark.
Hi, David. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So as stated, this is a change of use. The former Cuffy's building, portion of the former retail area will be converted to a bakery cafe, and another portion of the building will be converted to a fitness center. I provided a parking calculation, and I did receive comment from the planning staff about adding the employees. I haven't done that, but we will add that to the final application. No alterations to the parking area or any landscaping are proposed. So really, we're not going to be presenting a site plan because no exterior changes to the ground are being proposed. I think the site has enough existing parking to accommodate the new uses. The former Tuffy's, the former building in total had over 8,000 square feet of retail space, and which was over, I think, over 54 parking spaces. Would have been required under the bylaw. This building predates zoning. So whatever deficiencies there are in the parking would have been grandfathered. So in the parking calculation, I did provide that even with the spaces that are on the ground there are more than enough for the proposed use.
Okay, thank you, David. This is Catherine. I'll just go through a few points for the board before we go through with questions and comments. I did just want to read to the board the correspondence from some of the abutters that we just received this afternoon. I think this correspondence was forwarded to you, but let me read it. And this is from Susan Smith, Aaron Kressner, and Yasmin Chinchilla, and they are abutters to the property. And they say, Dear Chairperson Halpern, we are at the board at the residential condominium, which abuts the property of 1238 Main Street. We are aware that the owners have applied to change usage of the property. The two requests we have are a need for a total traffic flow plan and consideration that the area of Balfour Lane ties into the same power source. Adding a commercial bakery will have commercial ovens and need for venting. Has the electrical service to that building been upgraded to handle it? And has the wooden structure been upgraded to accommodate the bakery equipment? In regard to the traffic plan, we respectfully request planning be coordinated with all abutters in mind. Our driveway runs off of Balfour Lane to the rear of this property. There will be increased delivery traffic and, of course, customers around the building. We realize that these are preliminary meetings, however, wanted to state our concerns at the outset. Thank you for your consideration. Again, these are from the abutters Susan Smith, Aaron Kremser, and Yasmin Chinchilla. So give me one moment, please. And then, as we've noted, this is a pre-application meeting. So what our purpose is to let the applicant know what we need to ask, what we're going to require, and what we want to see at their formal application meeting. And I will just very quickly review what our site plan review criteria are for the benefit of the board and the public and the applicant. I'll just quickly summarize. Number one is the adequacy and arrangement of vehicular traffic and circulation. Adequacy, number two, adequacy and arrangement of pedestrian traffic, access and circulation. Number three, location arrangement, appearance and sufficiency of off-street parking and loading. Number four, location arrangement, size, design, and general site compatibility of buildings, lighting, and signs. Number five, adequacy of stormwater and drainage facilities. Number six, adequacy of water supply and sewage disposal. Number seven, adequacy, type, and arrangement of trees, shrubs, and other landscaping. Number eight, and this doesn't really apply here. In the case of an apartment complex, we want to have open space play areas. Number nine, protection of adjacent or neighboring properties against noise, glare, and unsightliness. 10, adequacy of fire lanes and other emergency zones and provision of fire hydrants. Number 11, special attention to the adequacy of structures, roadways, and landscaping in areas with susceptibility to ponding and flooding. And there were some additional points from staff that we might like to take into consideration and review. Some of these I think have already been submitted. Floor plans of the existing structure and proposed floor plans, evidence of title, names and addresses of abutters, a cost estimate, and this applicant is not planning on any external revisions, so I won't go through those points. Site improvements such as refuge storage, outdoor lighting, and updated parking calculations with the applicant has provided. We also need to determine whether we wish to schedule a site visit and a public hearing. So with that being summarized, let's just go through each of you and see what comments or questions you have for Dave Clark. Before we get started, I would just like to comment that one thing I would like to see is this traffic flow analysis for both pedestrian and vehicles, just because there are now several points of entry to the businesses, and we just want to be sure that safety is kept in mind and that the general patterns of both pedestrian and vehicular traffic are going to be safe with the new uses. So Art Sprue, do you have comments and questions for Dave Clark?
Yes, a few questions first. The parking analysis that you provided deals with the proposed uses and some of the existing uses, but I'm not clear if it covers all the existing uses. And so I just wanted a little bit of understanding. When I take a look at the floor plan, besides the fitness center and Pursuits and the bakery restaurant, there's 4 areas on the plan that are noted as existing to remain. Those are uses that are presently there, and I'm trying to understand what they are and how they account for parking, because when I'm looking at this, 29 spaces are needed just for the proposed uses. With only some of the existing, I just don't see that 910 square feet covers those existing to remain. So I just need to understand that a little bit, just so we get a complete picture of what is being leased out and used with all the other spaces too.
Okay, I can get an answer for you on that, for the final.
Yeah. Okay, there's some construction activities on the exterior of the building. I'm not sure if you can answer this, David. There's a dumpster in the back that's actually located on where the Pate's parking spaces are, and then there's more construction behind where the proposed fitness center is. I'm assuming that's all associated with the interior renovation work. I'm only raising that because I'm trying to just understand how long that's going to remain, because if it's the dumpsters on Pate's spaces, Pate's can't use them.
I think, from my understanding, is they got started on some interior work, but required to stop until we got through the planning board process. So it's going to be there for quite a while, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this is Bill Riley. So
Go ahead, Bill.
The work being done in the rear of the building is a result of a tree coming down, and the root structure ripped up some of the woodwork and the shingles on the building, and that's the work that they're doing there.
Okay. Thank you. The bakery, I think, if I'm assuming that there's going to be pickups and deliveries associated with this, and need to understand for, you know, the formal site plan, how that is all going to be arranged and addressed, in the frequency of that, because certainly that's going to impact traffic flow and interfaces with pedestrians who may be entering the bakery and using some of the cafe pieces of it. So don't need really the information for today, but it's something that would be helpful in final assessment. And I think the other thing, and I think Katie highlighted this, I didn't see and identify where the dumpsters would be for all of these different businesses. Are they collectively in a single location? Are they in multiple locations? Be helpful to show where those are on the final site plan that you're proposing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like garages, and there's garage doors, and there's entrances with parking spaces in front of them. So I don't know how those are getting used, or they're not used anymore. And it's in the spaces which are identified as existing to remain. So it'd be helpful to understand, again, all those other spaces, just to see if there is a conflict associated with that. Other than that, I don't really have anything else other than what you have mentioned, Catherine. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. Warren, points you'd like to see on the formal, and any questions or comments for Dave Clark or Bill Riley?
Yes, Dave, this is Warren Chain. Got some comments of things that I think ought to be carefully addressed in the formal presentation or the formal request, and some other questions I may have just for the this evening. Not necessarily in order of importance, but I note that in your planning for parking spaces, you have 2 handicap spaces. I'm no expert on the parking calculations, but there are 4 businesses already there plus an office. So there's really 5 businesses in the space. and there was only one business there before. So the number of handicap spaces that are appropriate, and as well as their location with respect to access to the different businesses that are there, is something I think would be useful to make very clear in the formal presentation or the formal request. Loading docks were already mentioned. You're going to have 4 businesses in this building, each of which will have a degree of requirement for loading and unloading of supplies, and exactly at the moment, I believe I only saw one loading dock, and it's in the back on the side toward Pates. But how loading and unloading will take place would be part of the traffic flow considerations, as well as the location for physically unloading trucks in the spaces that are there. Dumpsters were mentioned. Again, there are 4 businesses plus an office, so I'll call that 5 businesses, each of which might have their own requirement for a dumpster. Although it's my understanding that the owner of the building, 1238 LLC, or Main Street LLC, is the management company that owns Pates, that owns the subject building that we're talking about. Now owns also the former New England Pizza. And so my guess is that issues with respect to parking spaces allocated between Pates and this property are certainly resolvable, since the management company owns both properties. But still, the idea of perhaps considering parking traffic flow in a context which is slightly broader than just this property, given that the owner of this property also owns the adjoining properties, might be helpful in the formal present request. Let's see. It's been mentioned previously, but in the parking calculations, I didn't see anything for employees. And as I say, there actually are 4 businesses plus an office, so there's really 5 businesses there. And as best as I can tell, all of the existing square footage under the existing roof needs to be allocated out to one of the 5 businesses that are there, and the calculation of parking would be in accordance with that. So to the extent that things are just listed as existing, unused, or whatever, I think I think the board ought to be able to see in the formal presentation exactly which business is allocated those square feet, and then the parking calculation done according to that allocation. The traffic flow, that's been mentioned several times. It came to my mind as well as I saw this on site, with 4 businesses plus an office, some of which is not even focused on the entering in the front of the building, is almost certainly going to require a significant increase in traffic flow down Balfour Lane, around the back, and between Pates and the subject property. And so in the formal presentation, the whole traffic flow, it does seem to me, is something that needs to be carefully thought through, so it's clear. Let's see, there's no, I do think that given the number of businesses that are there, we don't really have access to exactly what times of day or whether they're going to be operative, but lighting plans, to the extent that these businesses might be open in the evening, would be, I think, worth highlighting in the formal request. Landscaping, don't know that there's any that is required, but I also don't know that we have any idea about the loading docks or the dumpsters that are required, and therefore it may be appropriate to have a landscaping component both for visual visual appearance plus plus a noise buffer. The question or the comments that came in from in writing about there being now a kitchen operation in there did come to mind to me, that there are services that are going to be required there. I assume that the building department or health department will be checking into these. In terms of sewage flow, the applicant, no, excuse me, the person who wrote in was talking about electric adequacy. That hopefully would be taken care of. Mentioned too that the health club would have significant power usages, I think, in excess of what Cuffey's had for all of their equipment, all of which is electrical. It did occur to me too that given that that the entire building plus Pace plus New England Pizza is all owned by 1238 Main LLC. There are questions that come up for me as to whether there are opportunities here to manage some of these issues collectively, i.e., what about dumpsters? Do you need to have 5 separate dumpsters for the 5 businesses that are there? Or can one large dumpster be adequate because it's essentially owned by the owner of the property? I don't know the answer to that, and whether the building codes would have provide an answer. But those are that might be something to consider in the formal application. I did have an interest as to whether other properties that are in the neighborhood may already be owned by 1238 Main LLC. I had someone tell me while I was on site that they understood that the motel that is down the road by the Rotary next to Dunkin' Donuts was also owned by 1238 Main LLC, in which case I think that's a very good thing, because that would be presumably for housing for service staff. But to the extent that there may be a greater plan afoot here, if it's possible to share that with the planning board, it might be very helpful in the when the formal presentation or the formal request is made. And that's the end of my comments.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus here. I want the board to understand that this area has always been a traffic congestion. Before the apartments went in on the corner, their pizzas have always been there, or not always, but a long time. The building originally was a furniture building, and they stored in the back, in the warehouses in the back. So there was always truck traffic going in and out of there, people buying furniture, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. So the little buildings and stuff on the side have always been occupied. The thing that I would like to see is a schematic or some traffic flow, and stick with that. And the board has to know that the buildings in the back, the warehouse part of the buildings, they have a laundry, which we came before the board and we accepted, and the laundry trucks go in and out of there. And then there's some builders up back that very minor ins and outs come from. But it's always been a high traffic area, as far as I've been around here a long time can see, especially when the store was open on the other side, the neighbor on the other side, the Whole Food store. And then when the pizza joint was there, there's always been traffic in and out of there, the people down and back. Everybody has seemed to get along okay, as long as nobody ties anybody up. They all take a little care in what they're doing. A lot of stores are open in the day. That leaves the nighttime for the nighttime stores. The daytime stores park in the nighttime spots. So, I mean, it does work out. I'd like to see the lighting plan of the back and in the sides. That's going to be, I think, dramatically increased with all these stores. Some pattern coming from 28 to get into where Cuppy's were. If you notice on the schematic, they're angled parking, so they come in one way and then go around the building and come out Belfour Lane or go out somewhere different. That's not my purview to tell them how to do it, but I think that we should have a schematic on that. The inside of the building, I don't care. The electrical services, I don't care. That's not our problem. If they have a brownout, that's their problem. As far as bathrooms and stuff like that in the building, I don't care anything about the inside of the building. I just think we should concentrate on what is our purview. And there is going to be a little difficulty in the traffic area, satisfying everybody with that, the drainage calculations and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Bob Wirtschafter.
Yeah, I think Bob is right that we're not worried about the electrical and the water and the sewage inside the building, but we're worried about the connections from the building and to the building. So if the electric service needs to be upgraded, we need to know how that's going to be done. If there is inadequate amount of water supply, I guess we need to know if that's going to be required, that we get some change in the existing infrastructure outside the building to the building. So that's just one. I think the flow that concerns me the most is in front of the building and the way it goes. And the thing that concerns me the most is that people entering from the Pate side thinking that they're going to come across and go to the right. Yeah, that's the real. I actually think it makes more logical sense to have people coming in through that one, because they're also going to be coming in to Pates in that one, and then coming out the other side and changing the angle of the parking to the other way and have the flow go the other way actually makes more sense. The only other things I'm looking for are bike racks, because we're going to have more and more people coming, especially to a bakery, on their bikes. We're going to have people coming on electric bikes and more in town. So I'd like to see some dedicated bike racks here.
Good idea.
And that's about all.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bob. And again, I'm going to ask if Tom Gagan has joined us. I don't think so, but I will ask if he's present and would like to comment. So this is Catherine. I just want to briefly summarize what I've heard from the board as what we want to see on the formal, when you come with for your formal review. I think one of the major issues is the traffic flow. A careful analysis and presentation of what the traffic flow will be for both vehicles and pedestrians, because now there's several businesses and several entrances. And also, if you can do that in light of how the businesses are actually going to be used, what is the timing? For example, what is the timing of deliveries to the bakery? For the usage of the fitness center, what is the timing of people going in and out? What I understand is there'll actually be classes, so that but again, we need to hear this from you, so that potentially there are customers coming in and then leaving an hour later, and then a new group coming in. But we need to know the times of the different activities of the businesses, so that we can clearly evaluate the traffic flow and the safety of the traffic. And also, the board has brought up points in relation to the abutters and parking and traffic in relation to the abutters. We also need to see lighting plan for the businesses. We need to see location of dumpsters. Will each business have their own refuse disposal area, and where will those be? We also want you to reevaluate the parking calculations and be sure to give us those again. And yes, I want to reiterate, Bob Dubus is correct. We're not so much concerned with the water flow and sewage and the need for greater electricity and all of that. We are concerned with the site plan. Those other issues are addressed by other people and other bodies, but we do need to see those issues relating to the site plan, including lighting, dumpsters, parking, and most important, I think what came up is traffic flow. So that's a little summary. Now I would like to ask the board if you want to consider, do we need to do a site visit and do we need to have a public hearing? So maybe before we would take a formal vote, let's just get a sense of the board. Just give me your opinion on site visit and public hearing. Do we need to do either or both? Arthur?
Well, I would say public hearing. I don't know that that's warranted in this case. After the formal submittal is made on the site plan, it might be worthwhile to take a look at it and see what is being adjusted, proposed, and how it all relates. So I could go either way on this. If you don't go for a site visit, I'll do my own personal one anyway.
Okay, great. Warren, how about you? How do you feel?
Well, this is Warren. I don't really feel that the board needs a site visit. I've been over there. I've been inside the whole building and outside and all around. But if the board feels that a site visit is warranted, I certainly will go back and learn some more. Yeah, and well, so I don't think a site visit and a public hearing, given the response. The only one response from abutters, and given the history of the site and surrounding sites, I don't think a public hearing is going to provide a great deal of information that isn't already known. So I wouldn't think it's necessary.
Great, thank you, Warren. Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus answers no and no. Thank you.
Okay, Bob Wirtschafter.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to, the site visit is a no, but the public hearing, there are a number of people on the phone here who we have, public, that we have not heard from today. And I'm going to reserve my opinion about whether we need a public hearing based on the, if we have any comments from the public here that might warrant deeper considerations.
All right, so I have a sense how everyone feels. We'll hold off on voting. And we'll take, if there are no further comments from the board, I will ask for comments from the public on this pre-application. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment or who has questions on this pre-application? Please raise your hand. I see one hand raised. I don't have initials associated with it. It says Stephen B. Is that Stephen Buckley, perhaps?
Yes, it is.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I and my wife live in the building right behind Pate's, which is 15 Balfour Lane. The building behind the Cuffey's building is 17 Balfour Lane, and those two together constitute the Courtyard Condominium Association. Yep. And just for clarification purposes, the way the condominium is set up is that there are two management boards, one for each building, and the three people who signed the letter are the management board for 15 Balfour Lane. So just wanted to clear that it's kind of an unusual situation. We didn't come up with the rules. We just moved in, and they were pre-existing. Anyway, I've lived here since 2008. And park on that side, right? Our parking spaces are on the side adjacent or to Pate's. So we do see quite a bit of, we see the seasonal changes and probably more than anybody else, because when you're running a business like Pate's, you don't watch the traffic too much, but we do. Anyway, I applaud I'm glad that the planning board is concerned about traffic flow. there's not enough clarity as far as where people are supposed to walk when they're walking from
Right.
way over someplace. I'm particularly concerned about the center of those four buildings. There's it's an unpainted four-way, not a four-way stop, but it's an intersection. And there are trucks that come down a hill, right, where you can see those trucks from that 17 Balfour Lane. They're parked there on the picture you're showing. They come down a hill, and I'm just waiting for somebody to come, flying through there and get hit by either, a pedestrian or another car. So I've always thought that there should be some paint on the road there showing who has the right of way. And so I applaud the idea. Hopefully, coincidentally, we're having an annual meeting of the unit owners on June 29th. So I'm going to raise the idea of how we might all cooperative and collaboratively or participate in some type of concern about thoughts about stories when we saw somebody almost hit and so forth, that will help inform any decision about traffic flow. So it's a good time to collaborate and cooperate and compare notes, and compare perspectives on that type of thing. So I appreciate that. And we can use, and I'm going to say by Zoom, not in person. That way we can all look at pictures and we all can look at maps. So that's my preference, whoever's listening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anyone else from the public who would like to comment on this pre-application or ask any questions? Please raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. I do see Warren's hands raised on the planning board. Please go ahead, Warren.
Yes, Catherine, this is Warren. It's not directly related to this application, but just for clarity on my part, it is the case that there's nothing in the application, this pre-application, which mentions that the current office for 1238 Main Street LLC even exists. And so my question, I guess, would be, would the addition of an office in that complex constitute a change of use, which ought to be included in this proposal, or has it already been proposed and approved in the past, or is it not necessary?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Riley or David, do you have an answer to that question right away?
Yeah, this is Bill Riley. This is not a different business. It's just something to take care of the businesses that exist there.
Okay,
So,
great. Okay, Mr. Riley, I'm going to ask you to.
I didn't hear that.
To mute your. He said it's not a different business. It's just an office to take care of the businesses on location.
that's correct.
So has it been there already? It's already an existing office. Is that correct, Mr. Riley?
Well, there was an office there
Or,
for coffees. So it's yes. So the answer is yes.
all right.
I guess my question is, when it was one business that had an office there, that's one thing. But now the office does not directly have anything to do with any of the four businesses in that building.
Yeah, that's not true.
So
But we'll present evidence on that at the formal meeting.
all right, excellent, thank you.
Great, thank you, Warren. So this is Catherine. I'm just gonna, how to say this? I think one major concern, it's very obvious, is the flow of traffic, both vehicular and pedestrian, and safety issues on the site. And there have been concerns brought up now by several abutters. To be honest with everyone, I was of the opinion that we did not need a public hearing on this particular site plan review for this particular site plan. But because these concerns with traffic have come up, and because they've come up from abutters, I'm wanting to rethink that maybe a public hearing will be useful, because a public hearing is the formal method through which abutters are heard. So I'd like to ask the board to reconsider that in that light. And if you could give me your opinions, I'm going to ask Bob Wirtschafter if you've made a decision. What is your opinion on a public hearing?
I do think we need a public hearing.
Okay, I would be in agreement with that. And as I said initially, I did not think we needed a public hearing, but because of what's come up from abutters, I think it would be useful. So can we take a vote on that? Why don't we go ahead and take a vote, unless are there questions or discussion from board members about that issue?
Captain, this is Warren.
Right.
I would only suggest that if we have a public hearing, that we arrange to schedule it after the association has its annual meeting, so that we would have the input of the association of the condominium.
All right, we can try to do that. Yeah. So why don't we do a formal vote if there's no other discussion or comments from the board about the public hearing? So I would ask for a motion in the positive, a motion to hold a public hearing. And if you disagree with that, you vote no. So may I have a motion to that effect?
Excuse me, Art Spur, I'll make a motion for that we hold a public hearing for 1230
Thank you. May I have
Main Street.
Thank you. And may I have a second to that motion?
This is Warren Chain. I second the motion.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Art Spru?
Art Spur, approve.
Thank you. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, negative.
Thank you, Bob. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we'll hold a public hearing on this matter. So what is it, 5 yes, 1 negative? So we will hold a public hearing. So let's now do a formal vote whether we need to do a formal site visit altogether. And again, let's do the motion in the positive. And then if you don't think we need a site visit, just please vote negative. So could I have a motion that we will plan to do a site visit on 1238 Main Street? Anyone? This is a formality.
Okay, Art Spur, I'll make a motion for the board to do a site visit.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Bob Wirtschafter, second.
Thank you. So again, if you want to do a site visit, vote yes. If you disagree, vote no. Art Spru?
Art Spur, no.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, no.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, no.
Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, no.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also vote no. So we will do a public hearing. We will not do a formal site visit. I think I've already summarized for the applicant what I've heard from the board, what we need to see for a formal application. I'm just going to ask the applicant if you feel you've heard us or if you have any questions for the board about what we want to see when you bring your formal application before us, and we will hold a public hearing. Mr. Clark or Mr. Riley, are you all set?
Yes, this is Bill Riley. I believe we're all set.
Okay, great. All right. So then what we do need to do is the board needs to vote to accept this pre-application. So could I have a motion to accept the pre-application?
Bob Dubus, I move to accept the application.
Thank you. And may I have a second? Anyone?
Art Spur, second.
There you go.
All right. And let's do the roll call vote to accept this pre-application. Art Spru?
Art Spur, approve.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, approve.
Bob Wirtschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we accept this pre-application. Thank you, Mr. Clark and Mr. Riley. Next item on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals has also requested our recommendation and comment on this matter on 1238 Main Street. And what their note says is, please review and comment on the above referenced Zoning Board of Appeals application prior to the hearing date noted above. Now, they did, so the hearing date noted is June 9th. So maybe can you oh, Katie has her hand up. Katie, can you clarify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The that application has been continued to, I believe it was August 11th. So if the
Okay,
board
thank you so
chooses
much.
to continue to postpone their comment until after the formal site plan application, I think that that should be fine.
Yes, and I think that would be wise. So we probably need to vote that we will postpone our comment to till after the formal site plan application. Do we need a formal vote, Katie? If I could just check in with you.
I
To
think it would be
postpone
beneficial
our comment.
just because so that we can
Yeah,
that it would, unfortunately you can't, if you continue something you have to continue it to a date certain. So I think if
all
we
right.
will just keep this on the agenda for the future because we don't know what the date will be for the formal site plan once
All
that
right.
application gets filed. So
Great, but we can vote to postpone our comment until the formal site plan review. Is that correct?
sure, I think that would be fine.
Or, all right. So may I have a motion to postpone our comment to the Zoning Board of Appeals until we do the formal site plan review for this application of 1238 Main Street? May I have a motion to that effect?
Art Sprue will make that motion.
Thank you. May I have a second to that motion?
Bob Wirtschafter, seconds.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Art Sprue,
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wirtschafter, approves.
and this is Catherine Halpern, and I approve that we postpone our comment to the Zoning Board of Appeals until the formal site plan review is presented. All right. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is Chairman's comments, and we don't have
Catherine,
anything.
just
Arthur,
one thing,
yes.
one thing as a closeout for that, should we send
Yes.
a statement to the ZBA about that we're gonna just postpone it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
we
you.
can do that. I think that's a good. Thank you so much. So I don't have any comments. I'll ask if there's any comments from board members before we close, or any comments from the public before we close for tonight.
Catherine, Bob Dubus here.
Yes, Bob Dubus. Yes.
I want to address the board with something that's on my mind.
All right.
I feel that we need to get out of the computer age and get back to being eye to eye. And
All right.
a couple other board members I've talked to separately seem to think that's a good idea. Jill, our glorious leader, has left it up to the individual bodies, that meeting bodies, and I don't know exact word I want to say, I'm sorry, but it's up to us if we want to open our meetings up. It's up to the HPDC if they want to open it up. So, but my gut feeling is I'm sick and tired of this. I'm getting so depressed that we're not seeing eye to eye, and I don't think with what's going on in this world that it's going to make a hill of beans, whether we're in the building or on a computer. And so my feeling is that I want you members to seriously consider changing our ways or I'm afraid that I might not be enticed to hang around too much longer. Thank
Oh
you.
dear. Okay, and I do see Katie has her hand up. Katie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind the board that I believe at your last meeting, just due to concerns with the rise in cases at that time, the board had voted to stay remote at least through June, if I was not mistaken. We can go back and revisit the previously voted motion, but just to remind the board that that was the case. So at
Miss
least.
Katie, I understand it might take a little bit of time. I just want to get the ball rolling.
All
Sure.
right. It might be something that we can just put on our agenda to consider at the June 27th meeting. We could consider what we want to do for July, and if we want to make that change, beginning July 1. So I do see Art Sprue, you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, I support Bob Dubus's comments on this. I've been meeting on a regular basis with the CPC, and we've been doing that in person in a very small room. So
All right.
I'm not personally, I'm not concerned. I understand if others are, but we could do a hybrid. So we could start doing that at the next meeting as far as I'm concerned. But if we want to make that decision at the next meeting, that's fine too. I agree with Bob. Let's get the ball rolling.
Okay, thank you, Arthur.
Yeah.
And Katie, I saw your hand was up. But Katie, may I ask you just to clarify, do we have a choice of fully remote or fully in person? And is hybrid still something that we can do?
Yes.
I just want to be clear.
Everything.
All right.
Yes. In person, fully remote, or hybrid is still an option, at least through July 15th. We understand through conversations on the Mass Planners listserv that there is a plan to potentially extend that order further as well, which will continue to allow for remote or hybrid meetings in addition to in person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'm in agreement also with Bob and Arthur, but since we voted to continue being remote through the end of June, I think it might be appropriate that we vote, if we're going to change, that we vote at the June 27th meeting, if that's agreeable to the board.
Catherine, I don't see any reason. I mean, when we were looking 3 weeks ago, things were a lot different than they are now. And so
All right.
I'm ready to make a motion to vote to change to hybrid with the next meeting.
All right. All right. All right. So, and Arthur, you have your hand up. And if that's how the board is feeling, even though we voted to go through the end of June, if we,
yeah, just a
hold,
question that ties into that. I'm not sure if
sure.
there's any board members that are positions expire at the end of June, and if they are re-upping. I'm just, maybe Katie knows the answer to that. I haven't checked it, to be honest with you.
I
Yes, I
haven't
don't
checked
know off
the
the top of my head.
either.
Yeah. But if the board, and Katie, is there any difficulty, even though we voted to be remote through the end of June, can we change our vote by voting again tonight? Is there any difficulty with that?
It's a tough call in my mind, because you did make that vote, and there were other board members present at that meeting that
right.
that had expressed concerns, and that would be my, only because you had taken a vote and said that you would remain through June. That would be my biggest concern. I think certainly voting on June 27th and going to hybrid after that is fine, but that would be the concern that I would raise. Is.
Thank you. Yes, I'd agree with that. And yes,
Okay.
Bob.
I think it would be more appropriate to vote at our next meeting. Maybe all the members can be there. And we did say one thing, so let's keep it the way it is. And well, like I said, the ball's rolling. So at the next meeting, we can vote to be hybrid and get over this mess. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. I think that's the best plan. So let's just vote on our June 27th meeting, we'll vote whether we want to move to hybrid meetings. All right?
And
Good.
Catherine, just for information, it's Warren who's the only one whose term expires in June. I don't know if you knew that, Warren.
All right.
I don't know
Okay.
what. I guess I haven't been invited, so that may be my last.
No, I don't think so, Warren. Anyway, so good. I think we've resolved that. And Bob Dubus, thank you for bringing it up. And we'll be sure to bring it up on June 27th, and we'll vote about how we will proceed after June. But now I think if there's no other comments from the board or the public, I could take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Well, this is Bob Dubus, and I sure can accommodate that motion. Bob Dubus.
Thank you
votes to
so.
adjourn.
And Bob
Thank
Worcester
you so much.
seconds.
Great. Let's do a roll call vote. Art Sprue.
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus approves with a smile.
Bob Wertschafter.
Bob Worcester approves.
This is Catherine Halper, and I also approve that we adjourn the meeting. Let's note the time as 6:05 p.m. And I want to thank everyone for your participation and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you all.